When a war begins, who declares the first ceasefire? Soldiers? Diplomacy? No. Algorithms. Today I'm going to talk about how wars are won, how money is directed, and perhaps most importantly, who profits from crises. But this won't be a typical economics video. We'll also talk about what people think, what they feel, and why they start believing the wrong things. Are you ready? Wars have two faces. One is lived on the battlefield, the other on screens, and strangely, the second is becoming more important. Some time ago, war footage was shared from an official government account. Scenes of children dying, buildings collapsing. But alongside these images, there was something else. Epic music, visual effects, production quality almost like a video game. It felt less like a war and more like a film. This disturbs us. It should. But that's not the only issue. At the same time, millions of people consume this content on social media. Some believe it, some reject it. Some say, this can't be real. Others shrug it off as, it's always been like this. And right at this point, we should ask, are we losing our connection to reality, or have we never been this close to it? Let me tell you a small story. In the 1930s, a Japanese professor studied how radio reached rural villages. He observed that radio changed those villages. What happened in cities was now known in the countryside, but this information wasn't equal. Some news stood out, others disappeared. Years later, Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. What you communicate is shaped by the medium itself, and most of the time, that message goes unnoticed. Now think about it. Television, the internet, social media. Each new medium changed the rules of the previous one. Can a society that reads newspapers think the same way as one that watches TikTok? Is that possible? Let me tell you another story. At the height of the Byzantine Empire, there was a gold coin called the Solidus. From Europe to Asia, everyone accepted it, because it was trusted, because the gold inside was real. Then emperors realized something. They could mint the coin slightly thinner. A little less gold, a little more alloy. No one would notice. Some did, but too late. From that moment on, everyone who trusted that coin realized they were living in a different reality. Because value is like an invisible thread. When it breaks, everything collapses. Jean-Baptiste Say once said, money is a medium of exchange, not a measure of value. So maybe it's not money that measures things, it's trust. How do wars disrupt this balance? First, through inflation. Governments print money to finance war. Supply increases, value decreases. History is full of examples. During the American Civil War, the North printed greenbacks, the South printed graybacks. The result? Inflation spiraled out of control in the South. People carried bags of money and still couldn't buy bread. By 1865, Confederate currency was worthless. The same happened during the French Revolution. Paper money called assignats was issued, initially welcomed with hope, then overused. Farmers refused paper and demanded silver or goods instead. The result? Chaos. But let's flip the question. Do wars only harm weak economies? No. In the 1997 Asian financial crisis, economies considered strong collapsed overnight. Debt-driven growth failed. In Lebanon, banks closed. People couldn't access their savings. The currency lost 90% of its value. So who suffered more, the strong or the weak? Maybe the question itself is wrong. Maybe the real issue is this. Wars affect everyone, but not equally. What matters is who is prepared and who is not. Pause here for a moment. Who profits in times of war? Soldiers, politicians, or a different class altogether? In the 14th century, the Black Death wiped out half of Europe's population. Cities emptied, villages disappeared, trade nearly stopped. But for survivors, it also created opportunity. Labor became valuable, land became cheap. Those with liquidity, silver, goods, or simply labor gained unexpected advantages. It became a buyer's market. In the early 2020s, we experienced another global crisis, a pandemic. Were the results different? Not really. Supply chains broke down, governments printed trillions, housing prices surged, markets recovered quickly. Those with liquidity accumulated assets. Others fell behind. The pattern didn't change. If anything changed, it was speed. And perhaps awareness. More people now realize that crises reward those with reserves and punish those without. Now let's turn to the digital world. In the 1340s, Florence was Europe's financial center. Banks like Bardi and Peruzzi financed kings. When the English king defaulted, those banks collapsed. Depositors were ruined, trade halted. Lesson: being large does not mean being safe. Reputation is not protection. In 2008, Lehman Brothers. In recent years, other banking crises. The same story repeats. But is this just about weak financial systems, or is it about the erosion of trust in institutions? Once journalists wrote by candlelight, trying to illuminate a dark world. Now everything is so bright that we can't see anything. An interesting metaphor. Maybe reality isn't light. Maybe it's what you focus on. And that focus is now determined by algorithms. Social media platforms shape what you see, what you think, and what you buy. We call this personalization. It sounds nice, but it's also unsettling. Because personalization is a form of control. And who is being controlled? You see a video online, a war clip, a speech, an economic claim. How much of it is real? The video might be real, but there could also be a deepfake version. Which one do you trust? Hannah Arendt once said, "The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction no longer exists." Maybe we are approaching that point, not just in authoritarian systems, but in democracies shaped by algorithms. And perhaps the most troubling part is this: people no longer know what to believe. Even if they do, they are not fully convinced. They just say, "This is how I see it." That is a form of surrender. Let me open a small parenthesis. I've noticed something. As trust in institutions declines, trust in individuals increases. But these individuals are not always experts. They are influencers, people with large followings. Why? Maybe because in a complex world, we seek simple answers. And simple answers rarely come from experts. They come from people who feel familiar. No! We used to know who grew the best tomatoes in our neighborhood, who made good bread, who kept their word. Now we consume global information, events happening on the other side of the world, and we cannot verify them ourselves. So we need someone to trust. But who? Oh, once, maybe newspapers, governments, academia. Now we trust a channel, a creator, a voice. And often that voice reflects our own thinking. So are we just following our own reflection? There's an important figure in communication theory, Harold Innis. He started as an economist and later studied media. While researching the fur trade in Canada, he analyzed how cities formed. He realized that geography isn't destiny, but it creates constraints and opportunities. A desert and a fertile plain are both land, but they don't offer the same possibilities. Similarly, geography shapes economies and politics. Coastal nations trade. Mountainous regions defend. But Innis's key insight was this: communication media shape empires. Ancient Egypt used stone, durable but immobile. It lasts in time, not space. Then came papyrus, light, portable, but fragile. Messages spread faster, but didn't last. Today, digital data, instant, global, but fragile in its own way. We have more access to information than ever before, but understanding? Understanding may be the scarcest resource. I recently saw a video. A man trying to convince his family about a war. He cited official data, intelligence reports. He said, "We won." They didn't believe him. Strange, isn't it? Two people, same data, different conclusions. Why? Because data, information, understanding, and wisdom are not the same. Data is raw. Information gives it meaning. Understanding places it in context. Wisdom knows when to stop, and now everyone can comment. Everyone can interpret. And sometimes those interpretations matter more than reality itself. Because reality is complex, and complexity is exhausting. Simple explanations are comforting, and that creates the perfect ground for manipulation. How does this manipulation work during war? First, narratives are built. We are right. They are wrong. This war was necessary. These narratives spread rapidly. Algorithms amplify emotional content. People consume it and absorb an emotional load. 1 million deaths become statistics. 1 death becomes tragedy. We struggle to process scale. And that struggle creates paralysis, so people disengage, distract themselves. Reality is heavy, too heavy to carry all the time, and sometimes survival means looking away. Now let's return to economics. Wars affect economies in 2 main ways, directly. destruction of infrastructure, labor, production. Indirectly, sanctions, trade disruption, supply chain breakdowns. But there is a third dimension, perception. If people believe an economy is strong, it often performs better. Investment rises. Consumption grows. If people believe it is failing, the opposite happens. And these beliefs are not always based on data. They are shaped by perception. John Maynard Keynes called this animal spirits. Fear, greed, hope, despair. And today, social media spreads these emotions faster than ever. So let's ask again, are these manipulations intentional or accidental? Both. Some are deliberate. States, corporations, groups managing perception. Others emerge from the system itself. Algorithms reward engagement. And the most engaging content is often the most extreme. It's like a river, flowing in a direction shaped by both design and chaos. And we are all swimming in it. In the past, when a diplomat arrived, everything mattered. Clothing, speech, even the paper used. The messenger was the message. Today, what arrives? A tweet? A video? A post? Reaching millions instantly. No filters, no intermediaries. Algorithms amplify or suppress. And we, the audience, struggle to decide what to believe. Wars don't just reshape borders, they reshape systems. And these changes are often unpredictable. Some emerge stronger, others collapse. And this imbalance is rarely fair. The strong have resources, they adapt. The weak carry the burden. And this burden is not just economic, it is psychological. Trust, hope, belief in the future. Even narratives are unequal. The powerful tell their story louder. Now consider this. In past wars, media controlled the narrative. Today, everyone can speak. But not everyone is heard equally. Algorithms decide visibility. Sometimes not by removing content, but by making it invisible. And this is more common than we think. Let me close with a few points. First, war and economics. Wars disrupt everything, but not equally. Second, social media. A tool of freedom, but also of control. Third, trust. As institutions weaken, individuals rise. But are they reliable? Fourth, information overload. Too much information can lead not to clarity, but confusion. So here is the final question. When a war begins, who is the first to lose? Soldiers, economies, ideologies, or our sense of reality? And perhaps more importantly, can we recover it? I don't know. But I do know this. Asking the question matters. Continuing to ask matters. And maybe most importantly, asking together matters. Because alone, this complexity is overwhelming. Together, maybe we find a way, or maybe we don't. But trying, that might be what it means to be human. And perhaps that is our greatest asset. For now, that's all. See you in the next video.